Hey there everybody, I want to talk about the Mesa Mark series models in the AX8 and AX8 today. They come under the moniker USA Lead and USA C+, or 2C+, I should say. What we're going to do is I'm just going to look at one particular instance of these models, and we'll be able to apply all these tricks kind of across the board with some tweaks depending on the model. So what I would encourage you to do is, after you've watched this video, go and apply some of the tricks, but try out all the different models. You know, we've got 4 different 2C+ models, a 2C++ model, and 4 USA Lead models, and then a USA Rhythm and a USA Clean. So there's 11 different models, so plenty of time to go away and tweak, but I'm going to focus on this one, USA Lead Bright Plus. It's my favorite out of the Mark IV models. My absolute favorite is a C++ model, but I've done some other videos on that. The Mark IV is really interesting because in the power amp section, there is this presence shift control, and I want to talk about that for a little bit in this tutorial. But first, let's get going with the basics. Let's have a listen to the straight up stock sound. I've got the 412 Petrucci V30 mix with some low and high cut. Sounds like this. Which sounds like rubbish. The reason that sounds like rubbish, even though the EQ controls are all flat, have a look at the preamp section. The tone location, meaning the bass, middle, and treble controls, are pre-gain in these amps, and that's the big misunderstanding a lot of people have. So essentially what you're doing is these controls are going to dictate how much of each particular frequency get fed into the drive stack. And we don't want as much bass as we want as much treble in there. We want to turn the bass down, and we want to turn the mid-range down a little bit, almost like the Fender Magic 6 settings. That's my kind of, starting point here. Of course, Boogie's got started as a modified Fender Princeton. It kind of makes sense that they would have a Fender-inspired tone stack. Let's have a listen just by changing that, if it sounds any better. Beautiful. That's kind of usable now. It's still not inspiring. So what we're going to do is go into the graphic EQ, and the graphic EQ is before the power amp, but after the gain stages. So what I like to do is set a moderate kind of V in this, pull a little bit of 240 out, boost a little bit of 80, pull a bit of 750 out. That's the classic one. Boost some 2200, because that's where your guitar really, really cuts through in a mix, and boost a bit of 6600. Not too much. I don't want it to be too bright. Just by getting that kind of curve going in the graphic, let's have a listen to how it sounds. All right, that's a guitar sound. Let's go back to the gain staging stuff. We've got 2 gain controls, the input drive and the overdrive. If I crank the overdrive up, it sounds like this. Conversely, if I leave the overdrive at 5 and crank the input drive up, it sounds like this. I don't know about you, but I prefer it with the overdrive control cranked up. It's a little bit smoother, it's a little bit more compressed, it's more gratifying to play. Let's leave it there. All right, the presence control on these amps is very, very powerful. A cool story, I normally used to leave it at 5, and I was doing a show on tour, and I was talking to the sound guy after the show, and he was really, really hip, and I said, hey, do you have any feedback about the way I'm setting up my sounds? And he made the comment, he was like, the only thing I had to do was pull a bit of 8K out, which is probably your presence control. So I turned the presence down on my main preset, and all the other sound guys I've talked to, they've all kind of just gone, well, I just set the board flat and it sounds fine. So let's bring the presence down to 2, because that's kind of your ice pick frequency. And, we've got the graphic EQ here to really fine tune the high end. We don't need as much of the presence control. Very, very nice. The fat switch is really cool on this one. This corresponds to like a pull mid boost thing. Basically what it does is it multiplies the frequency that the middle tone control operates at. Let's listen to that. So that one's really good. If you wanted to set up a great lead sound, I would turn the fat switch on. If you wanted a chunky rhythm sound, maybe leave it off. It would be really lovely to be able to attach a modifier to this. Hopefully, Fract will get around to doing that in one of the updates. All right, here is the last piece of the puzzle. Let's have a look at the presence shift control. This is what it sounds like off. And I should warn you that turning the presence shift on will bring the amp level down, so I'll compensate by turning the amp level up. Let's have a listen to that. It kind of adds this edge to the sound, which I think is pretty cool. I like the presence shift on with this Mark IV model. I think it adds a little bit of character. All right, we can just go back from here and really fine tune everything. What I normally do with these amps is throw a drive control. If I want like a crazy, super overdriven metal sound, I'll pull a little bit more 750 out and pull out a little more 240. So it sounds like this. And then I'll throw a drive control in front. I normally like the FAS boost, and I just turn the drive all the way down, level all the way up. Let's have a listen to that. And that is a great way to kick your lead sound over the edge. So, to recap, getting the bass, middle, and treble controls right, getting the balance between input drive and overdrive, dialing in your favorite graphic EQ setting, and playing around with the presence shift, they're the secrets to getting a really good sound with the Mark series, whether it's using the USA Rhythm for kind of a classic rock sound, the USA Clean for a really pristine, clean sound, or these lead channels for your modern metal and modern high gain lead sounds. I think these are fantastic amp models. Some of my favorite in the AX8, and I would encourage you to play around with them and find your favorite.